Peace, peace. This is Shalom Zoe bringing you a brand new flavor episode called American History in the South. We not own none of the copyrights, none of the music, image, videos is being displayed today. This is just for knowledge purposes. Please pass it along.
When they see that you rising up and you doing it on your own and you don't need no government, they want to shut it down. But that's the excuse? We're not going to do it again? Oh, they tore down all the so-called Black Wall Street, so we're not going to do it again? We were running Congress before Woodrow Wilson got there.
Right.
And we're not going to do it again? We had all the banks, all of them, but for the Rockefeller Foundation and the Rothschilds and the Bloombergs and the Carnegies and the Proctors and we're not going to do it again? So all of our ancestors that died, they died for nothing? That's how these foreigners won. They took over your mindset. That's how they won. When we going to change it? What we waiting for? Everybody sitting on their ass with their hands on it. Sitting on their hands. For what? We could go any way we want to do it. Anyway, we could do it whatever we want. We could do whatever we want. Ain't nobody stopping us but us. I exposed in that documentary that the South Africans stopped working for those white folks. And they had to change the rules. They got all their lands back and overthrew their government. And now them pale faces scared crying to the U.S. for some help. And the U.S. said, nah, y'all didn't deserve it. That's what you get. How come we not doing that? Because we don't know who we are. Because we don't know who we are.
Man, I just wanted to talk to y'all about a little bit of our rich history here in America, man. Pretty much want to talk about this Civil War. And, some of the stuff leading up into the Civil War. Like how the North Yankees, the colonies, wanted to join the South. And they wanted to expand America. But what people don't realize is that the Indians or the so-called blacks that was running the South had a stronghold over the South. Nobody was able to get in and out of the South. You better ask. So you got to think, when we first came to join with the Americas, they had to accept us for what we was already. And that's why you see a civil war happen in 1860. Because in the 1800s, they was just starting to come south. And you had these black Indians that was running things. The Yamasees, the Seminoles. They was not going. So I want to show everybody our history leading up to the Civil War. And even some after the Civil War. Because what people don't realize is that it was black Republicans. And they seem all shocked that it was black Republicans. But we actually went out and voted to keep our people in office. Like, it made no sense to vote now when we have nobody in office. Nobody speaking for us. But these Yankees did everything in their power pretty much to get us out of office. And I'm pretty much going to be showing that today. Y'all bear with me, man. And let's watch these clips.
For a long time, if you went to the library in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was one thing you weren't allowed to research.
We were refused. We were rejected by the librarian.
When I asked about or inquired about 1898, they wanted to know why.
I was told that, yes, they had something, but they kept it under lock and key.
The story of Wilmington in 1898 still isn't widely known.
What happened here on what's now just this empty patch of grass would radically change racial politics in North Carolina.
This is the story of an American election, but also of something we don't usually find in American history: the violent overthrow of a democratically elected government. In the late 1800s, Wilmington, North Carolina was the state's largest city. It had a majority black population, and historians today describe it as a rarity in the post-Civil War American South.
One thing I want to make note of, you got to believe this and you got to know this, because this is what they teaching us in school. So before the Civil War, all black people was pretty much slaves. That's what they saying, especially in the South. That's what they want you to believe. We couldn't read, we couldn't write, we couldn't, it was against the law for us to do any of these things. So I want y'all to put all this into your head and try to figure out how is all these people getting into office not knowing how to read and write. The story that they telling us about the South is blasphemy.
Prior to November 1898 was what the New South could be at the cusp of the 20th century.
There was an unusual degree of black prosperity.
In Wilmington, there were successful black entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, but also black elected officials. And for a time, that was true throughout the state. Take a look at the politicians on this poster of the 1889 North Carolina House of Representatives. Here at the bottom are black Republican representatives, some from Wilmington. North Carolina also sent 4 black Republicans to the U.S. Congress between 1875 and 1899. The Democratic and Republican parties of 1898 in many ways occupied opposite parts of the political spectrum than they do today.
Most African Americans were voting for the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party was white voters almost exclusively. White supremacy was the central focus of the platform for the Democratic Party.
Republicans in North Carolina were successful in part because of a third party called the Populist Party, made up of mostly white farmers fed up with the tough economic times. North Carolina populists joined up with Republicans to form what they called the Fusion Party. And in the elections of 1894 and 1896, the Fusion Party defeated the Democrats in sweeping victories statewide. That meant North Carolina now had a government that shared power between black and white politicians, including a newly elected Republican governor. Together, they moved towards reforms that would favor black Americans and working class whites.
This was something that the Democratic Party folks were simply not going to accept.
A multiracial government wasn't just a disappointment for Democrats. It was more like a humiliation. They needed a plan to take back control of the state in the next election. So party leaders like Furnifold Simmons, future U.S. Senator, Charles Aycock, future North Carolina governor, and this man, Alfred Moore Waddell, came up with one: to beat the Fusion Party by luring white populist voters away from their alliance with black voters. Wilmington, with a large black population and a local fusion government in power, would be a focus of their campaign. The state Democratic Party handbook for 1898 laid out their goal: consolidate the white vote by stoking white anger and resentment. It said, "This is a white man's country, and white men must control and govern it." Their most effective tool was the media. One of North Carolina's biggest newspapers was a Democratic Party mouthpiece. It ran racist political cartoons.
Once again, the media is controlling everything that we perceive, like the whole Biden election and everything. Like, we believe anything that comes on the news. And as you see, the media was controlling them back in the 1800s as well.
Throughout 1898.
Not everybody was literate in 1898, but to see a political cartoon of the type that ran, you may not be able to read it, but you know exactly what it means.
Many of the cartoons were centered on the threat of Negro rule, even though the fusion government was mostly white. They also played up another fear.
Black men threatening white women became a theme. White men need to do all that they can to protect white womanhood.
Now, hold up. Let me just speak on that real quick, because that went far. Because if you ever heard of the story of Emmett Till, they killed Emmett Till and beat him down because he whistled at a white woman. The whole Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing was started from a man being on an elevator and a white woman. So I just want y'all to see that. That's how they attacking us. They trying to say we coming for their women, man.
This was all part of North Carolina Democratic strategy, but it echoed the national racist rhetoric of the time. In one speech that Democrats printed in Wilmington paper, a prominent Georgia writer named Rebecca Felton said,
If it takes lynching a black man a day to protect white womanhood, I say lynch.
Her speech prompted a Wilmington black man named Alex Manley, owner of the black-run Daily Record newspaper, to respond with a column. He made a simple observation that, at the time, was shocking.
That white women who had liaisons with black men did so voluntarily.
It was just a few months before the election, and white voters were angry.
By the time the election rolls around on November 8th, black voters, Republican voters, had been thoroughly intimidated here.
By all accounts, the elections of 1898 were a sham. The Democratic Party had a paramilitary group called the Red Shirts. They attacked and blocked black residents from voting. At a rally just before the election, Alfred Moore Waddell provoked the crowds. He said, "Negro office holding ought at once and forever be brought to an end, even if we have to choke the current of the Cape Fear River with carcasses." The votes were counted, and the Democrats won.
Democratic candidates won every seat they had a candidate up for election in.
But some local fusionist politicians remained in power because their seats hadn't been up for re-election, like the white Republican mayor and the Board of Aldermen. And of course, the election did nothing to undo the economic power black folks held in the city. The Democrats had won the election, but their goal of total white supremacist control remained out of reach.
And so they engineered what was essentially a coup d'etat.
The day after the election, at a gathering for white men in Wilmington, the Democrats unveiled a document called the White Declaration of Independence. It contained an ultimatum. Cynthia Brown, whose descendants were in Wilmington back in 1898, is a historian at her church where there's a preserved copy of the Declaration from the next day's newspaper. They would strip black men of voting rights. They would give white men a large part of the employment heretofore given to black men. And as for Alex Manley, we demand that he leave this city forever within 24 hours. The next morning, hundreds of white men marched to the offices of the Daily Record. Manley was gone. He had fled to save his own life. They set the Daily Record building on fire.
So that's how they was getting people out of office. They was threatening to kill them. And you wonder why people left the Republican Party. This is going on all in the South. Because you got to think, this is this is the late 1800s leading into the 1900s. And you know what happened in the early 1900s, right? All them race riots. You know what I'm saying? Them trying to come for us, bro. It's all in our face, too. All right, so this video is pretty much gonna show how, as you see, the Democratic Party pretty much founded the KKK. And I don't believe in supporting any of these monsters, man. Until we get our people back into their original office chairs and be able to make a stand, we shouldn't support neither side. But this is going to pretty much tell you how the Democratic Party pretty much started the KKK and have black people that's Republican is being picked on because they're Republican.
Once I disclosed that I was Republican and the paper picked it up is when I started receiving hate mail from Democrats and people that told me that I was a sellout and that it was the tradition of black people to be Democrat. Up until that time, I didn't really think much about it.
The Republican Party has either not told its story well or its story has been hidden and contained by the liberal media.
It's been hidden, man. It's just a case if it was a guess.
There would be no Voting Rights Act if it hadn't been for Republican Senate and House members. There would not be the legislation we have today. It was Republicans who stood up for that stuff. The Democrats were the racists back in those days. It was a Democratic South, and those Democratic governors were the racists. But again, history has been kind of rewritten.
The Republican Party in Texas was started on the 4th of July, 1867 in Houston, Texas by 150 blacks and 20 whites.
Now, 1867. The Civil War just ended. If you remember what we learned in school, we had no rights to we couldn't read, some of us couldn't even decide if we wanted to fight in the war or not. Some of us was forced to fight in the war, supposedly. But in 1867, it's 150 black people in the Republican House Party. How? Throw the history books away, man. Cause this is no way. We been in this house. We've been in this Republican Party. You get what I'm saying? This ain't just happened after the Civil War. So we was already running things.
It was that way across the South. Republican parties were started in the South by African Americans. Republican parties were started in the South by African Americans. In the state of Texas, 2 of our first 3 statewide Republican chairmen were African American. The first 42 black legislators elected in Texas were all Republican. The first 112 black legislators elected in Mississippi were all Republican. The first 190 black legislators elected in South Carolina were all Republican. The first 41 in Georgia, the first 127 in Louisiana. So now you've got all these African Americans really stepping up and starting to gain political standing, political power. Now, you have Democrats on the other side who have been very racist. It's in their platforms. They support the Dred Scott decision. They think the fugitive slave law is great. They started a nation to keep slavery alive. Very racist. And so now they're facing a situation where that these blacks are now their rulers. These blacks are now their rulers, are now in office, are now U.S. senators, are now U.S. How do you stop that? 1866, Democrats themselves started the Ku Klux Klan. Its purpose was not to kill blacks. Its purpose was to take control and return Democrats to power. Their stated purpose in the KKK was to stop Republicans and restore Democratic control. Now, if you're looking for a Republican that you want to take care of, you can wipe out any black you want because they're 100% Republicans at that point in time. You can wipe out any black you want because they're 100% Republicans at that point in time. You can't wipe out any white. I mean, some whites might be Democrats. You got to be a little more judicious when you're wiping out whites. So what happens is the Ku Klux Klan starts attacking, not blacks, Republican conventions. For example, in New Orleans, in the Republican convention in Louisiana, the Klan joined with the New Orleans police, joined with the New Orleans mayor, Democrats. They attacked.
They joined with the police, man. Do y'all not hear this? They forcefully overthrew us out of our political party, our own political party. Wow. Yeah, we fighting to be Democrats, Dixiecrats. It's insane, man. It is insane.
Statistically, at the convention in New Orleans, Republican convention, they killed 40 blacks, killed 20 whites, they wounded 150 others. 1868, they put out a push card in South Carolina, and it listed what they call the radical members of the South Carolina legislature. That push card's about the size of a baseball card. It was put up by the Klan. Klan put it out. It had the pictures of 63 legislators that needed to be wiped out in South Carolina.
They started a hit list to get these dudes out of office. Why don't they go and reverse this? Because it's well documented. It happened. Why not go and reverse this and put us back into our chairs?
50 of those legislators were black, 13 were white. Now, they were all 63 Republican. On the back of the card, it gave you the name of each legislator so you'd know who you're trying to kill. Congress starts these hearings in this group called the Klan. And they have hearings, and so they bring in Democrat leaders that under oath from these Democrat states said, yes, the Klan belongs to our party. It's actually in Congress. 1872, the hearings, it's a 13-volume set of hearings in Congress. Unequivocally, Democrats say the Klan is ours and belongs to us. It's there to restore Democrat control in the southern states. Those guys who lived through it made it very clear. For example, one of the early black congressmen was John Roy Lynch. Another early black congressman was Richard Kane. And they're having to fight the Klan physically for their own safety. They go armed to Congress because of the Klan attacks. These guys said if we as blacks would simply stop voting the Republican ticket, if we would agree to vote the straight Democrat ticket, all the violence against us would be stopped.
Well, one Democrat in particular, who was the last individual to try to obstruct this legislation, was a guy named Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who for 14 hours and 13 minutes held a filibuster against the civil rights legislation.
Senator Robert Byrd used the nigger word 3 times on a national televised TV show. No outcry at all. Nobody said a thing, at least from the Democrat. No, the Black Caucus didn't say anything. The NAACP, no outcry.
So I'm gonna take y'all to my boy A1 page, man. Shout out to my boy A1, man. He always dropping knowledge. I get a lot of information from him. You know, he always on point. So check out what him and his man Amani Bey discovered. And this is about Abe Lincoln. And once I found this information about Abe Lincoln, I had to go and find more. I had to do more research. And what people don't know is that Abe Lincoln was a black Republican. He was nominated by the black Republicans. You know what I'm saying? And the only thing you hear about him is that his mom was Indian. They don't have no type of information on his dad. But check this out.
This is the Southwestern newspaper family from 1860. 1860.
Before the Civil War.
Okay, let's make it bigger. And these newspapers are a great way to tap back into the past. So I recommend everyone get these old newspapers because it's a wealth of information in them, and we're going to deal with some of them here today. So here you see Shreveport, Wednesday, September 12th, 1860. That's the date of this newspaper, okay? Shreveport, Louisiana. So Stephen A. Douglas dodged the vote on the compromise measures of 1850. So that Stephen A. Douglas was a competitor for the Cincinnati nomination in 1856. Let's go down here to the part here that's relevant. Oh, now Stephen A. Douglas' family was also running for president. He was one of the competitors running with Lincoln for the presidency during this time.
He's running against Lincoln. Come on.
Okay. Now, this is me. They talk about Lincoln. That when Lincoln, the black Republican competitor of Stephen A. Douglas, pressed him at Freeport, and he saw free soil and senatorial honors on one side, and true democracy and defeat on the other. That the effect and purpose of Stephen A. Douglas's squatter sovereignty is to give the territories to the northern states and take from the southern people an equal participation in.
You see, this dude that Lincoln was going against in the presidential election or whatever, Stephen Douglas, he trying to take the land from the people in the South and give it to these Yankees in the North. Like he got the game all messed up because he know that it ain't no white people that own no land in the South, bro. We had all the farms and all the lands in the South. So they had to come get us up off of our land. Like the whole Civil War was about the Nagas up north, the black people up north fighting the black people from the South. Because they was using us to fight each other, G.
They're talking about suppressing the power and down with the disunion of black republicanism. In 1860. It didn't just pop up on September 12, 1860, when this newspaper was issued out. Black republicanism didn't happen on September 12th, 1860.
It's been a
It was
problem for them.
way before that to get to this point to be so dominant.
Because they don't tell us we had any type of power. And you know what I went? I went and found some more articles, talking about Abe Lincoln. This is an article from 1860 from the South Carolina newspaper. The Black Republican nominated the Honorable Abraham Lincoln. The Black Republican Convention, it looked like. Come on, man. Let's see if we got some more. I got more, boy. Let me see what we got. This is from June 6, 1860, another old newspaper. The Honorable Abraham Lincoln, the Black Republican nominee for president, come on, made a speech for a Republican convention. Gee, so the black people is the ones that put Lincoln into office. Like, come on, bro. And not only that, they saying that he was a black Republican. So I don't know how many white people that is gonna get put into office by black people, especially during the time when we supposed to be slaves. This is another one. Yorkville. Oh, my bad. November 8th, 1860. The election of Abraham Lincoln, the black Republican candidate. Come on. Do y'all want more? Because I got more. Let me see. What else we got? Now that the black Republicans have nominated Abraham Lincoln, all right, so we see right now that the pretty much the so-called black people have nominated Abraham Lincoln to be the president. So I found this book, right? Well, I ain't found this book. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I got it from A1. So A1 gave this book called the Hidden Lincoln, and it's from W.H. This dude W.H. Herndon is that he was a lawyer that built a law firm with Lincoln. So this whole book, he pretty much talking about him and his law firm or him and his relationship with Lincoln, and he even go to describe how Lincoln looked. I'm gonna be quick, man, because this is on page 413, and like I said, these are notes from his best friend. So this ain't nobody else writing about him. His body was well strung, areas shriveled, having very dark skin. Lincoln having very dark skin. Having very dark skin. Now let's go to Abraham Lincoln real quick. Do any of these men look like anybody with very dark skin? Do any of these men look like anyone that the black Republican that we never heard about, that's been thriving since 1860 and before 1860, that they put him into office as being president? Somebody was very dark skinned. Do he look like anybody that fit this description, man? Not at all. Not at all, man. But look, let me show you something. These are some maybes. These could be him. All right, so this is pretty much a Mason gesture. You know what I'm saying? You're going to see a lot of these presidents with this sign with one hand up or one hand even exposed or one hand inside their jacket being hidden. I ain't even tried to show y'all that, but since it's on the screen, I'll break it down. They saying that this could have been a painting of Abe Lincoln. Who knows? Who knows, right? Somebody with very dark skin. See that hand gesture? Somebody with very dark skin. Who knows, right? They say that's what is other picture at? This dude Henry something. But yeah, they say this could be Abe Lincoln. But who knows, right? I just wanted to show y'all that because it was killing me. It was killing me, man, because we don't know nothing about these black Republicans. And just to go to even more detail, because you got to research the research, let's go on a website, the History Archives, Art and Archives. Let's go, man, and look up some of these people, and let's look up their background just to see what it's saying about them. And I could bet 9 times out of 10, it's gonna say somebody was mixed with an Indian and mixed with a black person or an African or something. But it's gonna always be somebody mixed with something, and it's gonna be pertaining to an Indian, man. Because 9 times out of 10, bro, all of us are the indigenous people of the South, the ones that came from the South. So let's do both Roberts. We could do both Roberts real quick. Robert Carlos. He's born in 1842. That's in the heart of it, right? Yeah, that's in the heart of it. Hold on, let me go. I missed it. Robert Carlos DeLarge was born on March 15, 1842 in Atkins, South Carolina. I hope I ain't butchered that. Although some records indicate DeLarge was born a slave, some records indicated, right? He was likely the offspring of free mixed race parents. I told you I was gonna be a mixed race, free mixed race parents, huh? And this is before the Emancipation Proclamation, which it wasn't even a lot of people in the South that was free, supposedly to them, right? To the school books, right? DeLarge's father was a tailor, and his Haitian mother was a clock maker. So they was some real blickety black people. Let's be honest. Them Haitians is Aboriginal too. DeLarge family owned slaves. Hold up. The DeLarge family owned slaves? What? So black people had slaves. That's what they ain't telling you neither. We had slaves, and I'm gonna show y'all in the next videos the slaves that we had, because it was white slaves in the South. Yes, it was white slaves in the South. And when when white people came to the South, they hated to see their people in our slavery. But let's read this. The DeLarge family owned slaves, and as members of the free mixed race elite, what is that? Were afforded opportunities denied their darker skinned neighbors. Wow. Robert DeLarge was educated at a North Carolina primary school. So this dude had an education, and he was able to read during a time where niggas would get beat up for being able to read. And he was one of the Republicans. He was one of the senators. Yeah. Come on. Y'all still ready to believe what they teaching you? Just do some research. Just do some research. It's right there in your face. Let me check. Let's check the other Robert out. Let's check out Robert Brown. This dude like somebody I work with, G. Fro. The little husky eyes. Like he tied. Come on, let's see, man. Let's see what's going on with him. Robert Elliott was born August 11, 1842, likely to West Indian parents. Come on, G. Likely to West Indian parents. West Indian parents is the Americas. So his parents is Indians from America. Now let's go look at this dude. Who looked like this? Who looked like this? I wish I can blow this up. Who looked like this, G? That's what we not putting together. They just said he was born from West India parents in England, though. Come on, man. You know he ain't supposed to be looking like this. And then he's known as a black Republican, as both of his parents is Indian. Ding, 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 man. Put 2 and 2 together. We'll do one more. Let's get somebody from the next column. Let's do Richard Harvey Kane. Richard Harvey Kane. Bro. Like one of my cousins. Alright, let's check him out, man. Richard Harvey Kane was born to free parents on, he was free, to free parents on April 12, 1825 in Greenbrier County, Virginia, now West Virginia. Come on, bro. I promise y'all, I'm just picking people. I'll leave this link in the comments, or I'll leave it on a little caption part, and you can go and you can look all these people up yourself. His Cherokee mother and black father. Now let's think about this. His mama Cherokee, but his daddy black. Black is not a nationality. Black doesn't mean anything. You don't come from the land of black. So they disguised, and this dude was a full Indian. Guarantee his daddy was an Indian as well, cause they moving about, and then he's educated. So no, bro, we cannot go and believe everything that they telling us. We can't. Look at this dude. You telling me he like the Indians that they show us on TV? This dude was a senator. He was a part of the Republican Party. We literally gotta sit and do our history over, man. And when I'm gonna go and I'm gonna show you that it was white slaves in the South, right along with black slaves, but it was white and black slaves in the South. And when they telling you about these people coming from Africa, the people that came from Africa was the white people.
Kind of racist. Oh my God. All we gotta do is go the Civil War was our war, North against the South. It wasn't nothing about no African slaves, baby. Indians enslaved because we lost the war. So we assimilated into the United States. Real Indians look like us. Ask Christopher Columbus who he saw when he got off the ship. Let me know when he reported to a king. Why you think you got a brown penny, baby? Copper color Indians, baby. What do you think about Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with the original black American Indians. Black Lives Matter is a propaganda to keep blacks thinking that they're African Americans that came on slave ship. We already know. We are waking our people up to let them know that we are the American Indigenous Indians.
It's called gentrification. It's what happens when the property value of a certain area is brought down. You listen to the law. They bring the property value down. They can buy the land at a lower price. Then they move all the people out, raise the property value, and sell it at a profit. And what we need to do is we need to keep everything in our neighborhood, everything, black. Black owned with black money. Just like the Jews, the Italians, the Mexicans, and the Koreans do. Well, how do you think the crack black gets into the country? We don't own any planes. We don't own no ships. We are not the people who are flying and floating that shit in here. I know every time you turn on the TV, that's what you see. Why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every corner in this community? Why? Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the black community. Why? They want us to kill ourselves. You go out to Beverly Hills, you don't see that shit.
You black people, rise up and overcome.
Get out and vote.
Let me